Good morning. I just shared with the commissioner, every time I grab this gavel, I think of Marty Chabert. So, good morning, everybody. Listen, we're going to get started today with the LATTA meeting. Our meeting is currently being streamed live, so please turn on your microphone using the button. If the light is green, the microphone is on. If it isn't, hit the button. I'm saying this for myself, okay? So, Commissioner Reed, will you please call the meeting to order, ma'am?
Yes, I will. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to call the LATTA meeting to order. Rhonda, good morning. Will you call the roll?
Good morning. Dr. Reed?
Here.
Regent Aubrey? Present. Regent Creed? Here. Regent DeVee? Regent Ewing? Here. Senator Fields? Regent Finley? Ms. Cowder?
Present.
Regent Levy? Here. Regent LeBray?
Here.
Regent May? Representative Mincy? Regent Meir?
Present.
Regent Pryor?
Here.
Regent Seal?
Here.
Regent Solomon?
Here.
Regent Sterling? Here. Regent Temple?
Here.
Regent Weil? You have 14, which does represent a quorum.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comments?
No public comment at this time.
All right, thank you. Hearing none, we'll move to item 4. Members, you've received a copy of the minutes from the January 9th, 2023 LATTA meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Moving on to item 5, the consent agenda. Dr. Boutte, good morning. Please present this item.
Good morning, members. Very simple consent agenda item. This is to implement the rulemaking for the Secure Act of 2022, and it's also to implement in rule, which we are required to do by statute, the interest rates for the START Savings Program for the calendar year ending December 31st, 2022. These are set by the treasurer, so basically they have to be codified in rule. Any questions about the Secure Act? Did you want a summary of that or just proceed?
I think proceed. Are there any questions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda item?
Motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion or any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Any other information to come before the committee?
No, ma'am.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Okay, so next up is our Facilities and Property Committee. Regent Levy, please call the meeting to order, sir.
Yes, sir. Chair Levy. Here. Regent Weil. Regent Creed. Here. Regent Ewing. Here. Regent Meir. Here. Regent Pryor. Here. Regent Lobray.
Here.
LCTC representative. Supervisor Werner. Here. Southern University representative. And Supervisor Donahoe. Yes.
Supervisor Warner. Yes.
I have Werner, and I
Yes.
see LCTCS came in as well.
Okay, great.
So we have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Do item number 3, consent agenda, including small capital projects, please.
Yes, the consent agenda contains 18 small capital projects that were approved since my last report to the board. For the newer members, these are projects that the institutions may handle on their own as long as the construction cost is $1 million or less. So these are typically funded from auxiliary revenues, grants. It can be operating dollars, a variety of sources. But again, these are basically handled by the the institution and are submitted to us for staff approval and are reported to the board at a later date. I'd be happy to answer any questions on a project. Otherwise, we recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Members, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? I'm sorry. Is there a second? Is there any discussion or any questions? All those in favor by signifying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition say nay. Motion passes. Please move on to item 4, the update on House Bill 2.
Yes, sir. So House Bill 2 was introduced last week. It is yet to start moving through the committees, but that should occur starting next week. As of today, there are 96 projects for higher ed in the bill. 77 of those projects have a priority 1 or priority 2 appropriation. The priority 1 and 2 appropriations represent funds that can be converted to a line of credit by the bond commission during the upcoming fiscal year. And those projects with P1 or P2 appropriations totals about $338 million. That's 20 projects for LSU, 16 for the Southern System, 26 for the UL System, 10 for LCTCS, and 5 for Regents. The other projects that are not funded with priority 1 or 2 are funded with either self-generated revenues or they only have a priority 5 appropriation, which will not be converted to cash during the upcoming fiscal year. Out of that total, there are 9 new projects in the bill, 1 for LSU, 4 for the Southern System, 2 for LSU, ULS, and 2 for the LCTCS. There's also currently $35 million in cash for deferred maintenance in the upcoming fiscal year. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the bill overall, or if there's anything on a specific project or campus, I'd be happy to answer that as well.
All right, members, you've heard that presentation. Are there any questions of Chris? This was for informational purposes only and does not require any action on our part. If you would now go to the next item, Grambling State University Library Update. We will go into executive session to discuss the agenda under item Revised Statute 42:17A2, which allows a public body to go into executive session to discuss strategy sessions, negotiations with respect to collective bargaining, prospective litigation, after a formal demand or litigation when an open meeting would have been detrimental and having a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body. This matter has the potential for litigation. An executive session is therefore necessary. There will be no action taken, no voting or polling. The executive session is for discussion purposes only. We will need a 2/3 vote of the committee members present to go into executive session. However, all board members are invited to the executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session? Is there a second? Second. May I get a voice vote on the motion to go into executive session? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Pardon me?
Chris will have to call them.
We'll do a roll call in just a moment. Hearing that, Chris, if you would do then a roll call, each member must provide a voice vote separately so that the votes can be recorded.
Yes, sir. Chair Levy,
Yes.
Regent Creed,
Yes.
Regent Ewing,
Yes.
Regent Meir,
Yes.
Regent Pryor,
Yes.
Regent Lowbray,
Yes.
LCTC representative,
Yes.
LSU representative,
Yes.
and UL system representative.
All right, then we will go into executive session. Mr. Chairman, what's your pleasure? For us to remove ourselves to the other room?
Let's go to the other room.
What's the room called?
North Dakota room.
No, we will then repair to the North Dakota room.
Every time that pump goes out the back of that commode. Right. As a matter of fact, every time we flush it, it throws water. You probably seen the building. I looked up, I have not seen it. I haven't been up, I don't go up on campus. Look at it, it's fancy.
Oh, you thought your hair was up? No, it's almost that.
Good job.
All right, let's wrap this up. We got a little off of our. What's that, dear? Yeah. Are we missing a few? 1, 2, 3.
COUA.
Yeah, one.
Let's see if I can find some folks in the hallway. We got him, Bob.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back from executive session. Again, there was no action, no voting, no polling that occurred. Now, is there any other business to come before our committee today?
No, sir.
Do I have a motion for adjournment? Is there a second? Second. Any opposition? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Levy. Next up is the Legislative Committee, and due to Regent May's absence, I'm appointing Regent Terry Sterling to chair the committee. So, that being said, Regent Sterling, if you'd please call the committee to order.
Thank you, Chair Temple. I'd like to call the Legislative Committee to order. Uma, would you please call the roll? Yes.
Here.
Representative? LSU System Representative? Southern System Representative? Here. The UL System Representative? You have a quorum.
Thank you. Members, session started a little over 2 weeks ago, and we know that it's been a busy session so far, and the staff has been deeply engaged in a number of bills this session. We'll now hear an update on several items we're tracking. Uma, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. We will go over a few bills. We have selected a few for, that may catch your attention.
Uma, can you bring the mic a bit closer? Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. No, okay, thank you. We have shortlisted a few bills that may catch your interest, so if there are questions about other bills, please let us know and we will send you additional information. But I'll go through a few bills that I have shortlisted for you. First, the Board of Regents bills. These are the Board of Regents legislative priorities, and I'm happy to say they're sailing through the process. The first one passed the House yesterday, House Bill 6. This would allow the Regents Board meetings, HB 6. This passed the House yesterday. This would allow the Board of Regents to meet anytime in January, not before the second Monday, as current law requires. So this allows you some flexibility in scheduling your January meetings. The Governor's Military and Veteran-Friendly Campus. As you know, this designation was created in law a few years ago, and the private institutions were added to that designation process subsequently. All of our public institutions have gained that status, so it is time for us to continue to improve the process and the service to the veterans and military families. So this bill would authorize the Board of Regents to create additional tiers to recognize higher level of excellence in serving this population. This passed the House yesterday. The power-based violence bill, this calls for a few minor changes to current law, the power-based violence law. This bill, Senate Bill 202, would allow us to offer the campus climate survey at the same time as the federal survey. We are waiting on the federal instrument to be released, so we can offer it at the same time using the same instrument to reduce service fatigue. It also makes the process of gaining MOUs with local law enforcement much easier because it requires the local law enforcement to execute the MOUs within 30 days of receipt of the MOU. Right now, our institutions are having a tougher time than needed. To get the MOU signed by local law enforcement, this would make it easier by requiring local law enforcement to sign the MOUs within 30 days of receipt. Teacher reciprocity, House Bill 472. This would allow the state of Louisiana to enter into a multi-state compact. The slides are not in order. This bill would allow the state to enter into a compact with other states such that teachers with a license in another state which are part of the compact can gain a license in Louisiana to teach, subject to certain conditions. So this is a bill that came out of the teacher recruitment retention task force, and the task force endorsed this bill. It passed the House Education Committee, and it will go to the Governmental Affairs Committee because that process is required for a state to enter into a compact. So it's been dual referred to the Senate, the House Governmental Affairs Committee. Similarly, the TRRR task force, the Teacher Recruitment, Recovery, and Retention Task Force, it has conducted its work for the last 3 years, and this bill would allow the task force to continue in existence for 2 more years to continue the good work because the teacher shortages still exist. There was an HBCU day, which was a great success at the Capitol. That was a resolution passed. The commissioner or others may be going over that, but that was a great event to recognize our HBCU institutions. Here are some bills that affect higher education, impact higher education. The Affordable Textbook Pilot Program, House Bill 381, passed House Education yesterday, 2 days ago. This would align the pilot program to what our Lewis unit is already doing, the online library unit is already doing to make textbooks more affordable, particularly to those students, socially and economically disadvantaged students. So Lewis would undertake a pilot program to target textbook open resources available to that student population. Louisiana Cybersecurity Commission, the commissioner is on that commission. This bill codifies what currently exists under an executive order. So this bill would let that commission continue under a statute, so it does not have to be, the executive order does not have to be renewed under a different administration. This would codify it in law. Another important bill is the LA First bill, Senate Bill 205, which is coming up in Senate Education tomorrow. We have lost the ability, the Board of Regents has lost the ability to conduct longitudinal research to connect all the different pieces that higher education touches, higher education impacts, K through 12, our foster youth, how they do, their success outcomes, the criminal justice system, employment, the revenue generated by those with a post-secondary education credential. All of these pieces require some longitudinal research that requires us to collect data and be able to connect the pieces. And we have lost the ability to do that because of some laws that were passed 4 or 5 years ago that limited our ability to collect the data and to analyze the data. So this bill is a very beneficial bill, something that will benefit the state, not just the Board of Regents, because it allows us to connect all the different parts. It's Elliot first. It connects all the different parts of the equation, how the Board of Regents work and how higher education's work connects with the rest of the state's economy and prosperity. It's coming up on Senate Education's agenda tomorrow. And that completes the review of the bills. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. If not, we can move on to the next item.
Members, do we have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I do want to mention, you do have in your slide deck 2 other slides regarding affordability, as well as some of the more challenging bills around tenure, race-based admissions, et cetera. So I just wanted to make sure you all were aware. In totality, there are some phenomenal things moving through the process. There are some challenging things as well. And as a higher ed board, I wanted to make sure you were aware of those.
I have a question. I'm glad you pointed that out, Commissioner. The bill, Senate Bill 174, regarding the annual evaluation of professors, of faculty members. Do we know any background on that? Why that bill came about?
Senator Cathy did last year raise the issue of tenure and concern about tenure. He asked for a study commission to be formed to look at tenure. The task force was formed. They did not meet. And then he brought this legislation for annual review. And so I know that system presidents and some faculty have had conversations with him about the importance of tenure and what we already do in our state in terms of review of faculty. But there has been sort of continued conversation and questioning about the value of tenure. As you know, the tenure conversation, the diversity conversation, anything that says in a challenging environment where we have talent wars, where we're trying to recruit the best researchers and faculty and the most diverse students, it signals that anytime we're signaling that people are not welcome or that we don't support the processes, I think it's hard for us in Louisiana to continue to get the best and brightest.
Sure.
And so whether these things pass or not, the conversations are challenging to the enterprise that is about talent development.
Sure. I sort of wanted to know also, was it linked to the DEI bill also? Was there any discussion regarding that?
So the DEI conversation is happening in multiple states across the country, and what you see in a number of these bills is duplicative bills and duplicative conversations that are moving throughout various states.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Is it too early to tell what kind of success some of these bills, like that one we were talking about, I mean, that would be extremely cumbersome. And if you're going to do it, you don't need to do it every year. But I don't advocate doing it at all. But do we have any feel yet for how well these bills? I know this: the last session of the term is usually a time that you get a lot of stuff, and Sometimes it's for campaign purposes.
There you go.
Sometimes it's just, I need a bill in here. But I mean, some of these things that we just went through, I see no merit. And I guess we're gonna have to take a position on some of them, or that we should, particularly those that are designed for us to have to be involved in. But is it too early to tell what kind of success or what kind of traction some of these bills are picking up? Do we know that they've come out of committee yet? Have they all come out of committee?
That bill about post-tenure review?
Yeah,
does-
174, has it come out of,
No, it does not.
These have not been scheduled yet in committee. They have not started the process
okay.
yet. But we are certainly being asked about them, and we're certainly talking about the importance of the work that we do in higher education and why we need to, we are certainly focused on accountability. We are certainly focused on talent development, but I think it is important for us to continue to express concern about things that are not helpful to the enterprise and support and lean into things that are great for the enterprise.
Excuse me, I would just like to add a statement of Senator Ewing. I would like at some point, if we, as this moves along, I know Commissioner Reed, you've made a statement publicly. I know Dr. Henderson made a statement publicly, but I would like the Board of Regents to make a statement publicly if we all see it the same way, just at some point.
Well, I've spoken with Commissioner Reed about that, and we actually had it informally on the agenda at lunchtime to have a discussion about it, because I would be in favor of that as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Members, this item was for information only and does not require action. We now will move on to item 4, the Legislative Study Reports Update. We'll start with item A, the 2022 Health Works Commission Annual Report. Welcome back, Malin. Joining Malin, our Assistant Commissioner of Student Success, is Dr. Anyo Burks, the Chair of the Nursing Supply and Demand Council.
Thank you, Regent Sterling. I'll very briefly provide an overview of the structure of this report. And before we begin, I wanted to remind the board that the Health Works Commission is a legislatively created commission that's charged with coordinating those resources for healthcare's workforce. And it's comprised of post-secondary, legislative, as well as some medical organizations. And the Board of Regents provides the necessary staffing for this commission. Annually, this commission is required to submit a report, and we wanted to bring this report to the board, really continuing to elevate the conversation as it relates to Louisiana's healthcare workforce. In this year's report that is in your materials, this report has 2 sections. The first section provides an overview of some of the work done in this commission, and that includes continuing the nursing and allied health capitation programs. Those programs are designed to increase the capacity and class sizes of our nursing and allied health programs. They have funded some additional new initiatives, one of them being a statewide simulation expo, which brought together our simulation educators to really further support simulation learning in our healthcare programs. Another new program that they funded was a free of charge summer camp geared towards middle school students to really further incentivize the interest of students in the healthcare professions. And then lastly, the commission recently released and distributed an application for regional healthcare innovation partnerships. Last year, we engaged stakeholders, asking them the question, what can we do to continue to meet the needs of the healthcare workforce? And one of those recommendations was continuing to leverage public-private partnerships. And so we released this application really encouraging innovation and creativity amongst our institution and our healthcare providers working together. The selected applicants will be announced following the HealthWorks Commission meeting on May 2nd, and we really look forward to the impact that those partnerships will have and contribute to their region. The second part of this report is the Nursing Supply and Demand Council's annual report. This is another legislatively creative council, and it's particularly charged at looking at the supply and demand of nurses in the state. This report includes an overview of specific to advanced practice registered nurses, LPNs, as well as nurse aides. And really to speak to that is the chair of this council, Dr. Aniel Burks. So I'll pass it over to Dr. Burks.
All right, thank you for having me. So I'll jump in with our advanced practice registered nurse data. So our enrollment actually increased about 9% compared to last year. We had a 40% increase in the number of graduates, and the demand data, which fluctuates based on if requisitions are posted and jobs are available, was about 467. What I think is really interesting about our advanced practice nurses right now is we have 2 new midwifery programs coming up, and we definitely need more midwives because our birthing outcomes are not great in the state of Louisiana. So hopefully we'll see that reflected as those programs get up and we get people enrolled in them. Our overall NCLEX pass rate for this group was 94.34%. And just to circle back to the midwives, we currently have 56 midwives in the state of Louisiana, so hopefully we'll grow that workforce and have more support for maternal outcomes. There's also a Senate concurrent resolution by Senator Carter right now regarding the midwifery programs and how we're going to use midwives in the state of Louisiana, and we do have some of the schools included in that resolution. All right, registered nurses. So admissions went up 24%, but I'll break down those numbers. Of that 24%, we did have an overall applicant pool of 5,004 people. We admitted 3,717 of those individuals, which was like a 74% that we took in, but we did have to turn away 1,287 individuals. We're not sure if that number is duplicated or not duplicated, based on if I'm a nursing student and I applied to multiple programs. So we're looking for a better way to kind of catch, is it a one-for-one or, is it something different? Also, the demand fluctuates based on need with this group too. So we had 24% increase in admissions. We had a 14% increase in graduates, and a demand was 5,414 positions as of April. So we need nurses. Our NCLEX pass rate, I believe, was above the national average, but I have to come back. The LPN group. So we increased our admissions by 7.6%. Of that group, 2,015 of 2,597 qualified applicants were admitted. What we see with this group is the attrition isn't great. We lose people in the program. We admit, but our graduation rates are not great. And some of the reasons have been attributed to its open enrollment. So the students coming in may not be prepared for the rigorous programs. And then also looking at what kind of supportive services are in place for the LPN students. The demand for the LPN group is 1,417 as of April. And the NCLEX pass rate for this group was 82.76%, which is better than the national average. Do y'all have any questions? Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. We've been better than the national average for, I want to say, 27 years.
Yeah.
But the national...
The LPN pass rate is on page 17.
Yeah, the national average is 80.
Yeah, 80.51%.
80.51%.
And we're at 82.
Are these demand
You're welcome.
statistics year over year? Is the demand reducing?
The question is, are these year-over-year comparisons?
They
On the
are.
demand.
They are, on the
Yeah.
demand.
Is it up or down?
For the LPNs or for overall?
Overall licensed nurses?
Overall, we're
midwives?
doing better. We still have room for improvement, but we are making
So what was the demand, for
strides.
example, last year for LPN?
So demand fluctuates. Demand's really tricky. So we have a few different data sources that we can use. When we look at the requisitions that are posted, that changes based on if the rec is posted, if it's an evergreen rec, meaning that I can collect multiple people into this one requisition, but I'm really trying to fill 20 jobs. So it's hard for us to really get a touch point on how many we actually need. So we went back and forth with looking at, I think it was Louisiana Workforce Commission data with Star Jobs and
Well, I'm sure COVID had an enormous impact on all of these numbers.
Yes.
But I was wondering if we had, if the demand is starting to decrease because we're filling the jobs, or that it's continuing as it's been for decades to greater need and greater demand?
So I think the demand is still there. I think we're also getting creative with how we're filling jobs, where we may have used an RN for one position, it might be flexed into an LPN is being used. And I'm going off script, but like the inpatient setting was bringing LPNs back into practice in that setting, and they normally functioned in post-acute settings. So I think the demand is fluctuating. And when I say post-acute, I mean like nursing homes. So the demand is fluctuating, but there's still a great demand for all
Do you
three.
have access on the Department of Labor or from some other source that would show how many LPNs are working in the state of Louisiana?
Yes.
How many RNs, how many midwives, everything, year-over-year comparisons as well?
Yes. So we do have that in here from the different nursing boards. I will say for RNs, we did see a decrease in registered nurses, and that could be attributed to maybe retirement, which we think is going to happen with our baby boomers retiring. And then also some people decided to step outside of the workforce after COVID.
What about being recruited away to other states?
That was my next
I would
one.
think that might be one of our greatest challenges, is it
Yes,
not?
that's another part too. And since we have the compact licensure, the board is trying to see how many of the nurses practicing in Louisiana have a Louisiana license and so forth. Because now our nurses can use their license to work in other states.
Right.
And then other nurses that work in other states that are compact can come here to work as well.
I'm sure fits the profile of a lot of our graduates in all curriculum, being recruited away, being
Mm-hmm.
paid more to be a teacher in Texas, or being paid more to be a doctor in San Francisco, for example.
Absolutely. So recruited away for permanent positions, but as well as for travel positions. Because during the height of COVID, we saw a large amount of nurses.
Is there any
take
incentive
travel.
that we're providing to these young graduates, LPNs, RNs, to stay in the state?
So organization to organization will have sign-on bonuses and those kind of things for them to come work with them.
So
stay for.
it's not a
Not
state-sponsored
a state
programs to try to
Yes.
keep our young professionals here, at least for a while, to kind of recoup some of our investment in their education?
No, not at this moment, but you're reading ahead because in SR 129, that's what we were looking at. We looked at all 50 states to see if there was something in place legislatively to support the workforce. Like if there is retention packages where the state was kind of saying, stay in the state, work for the state, keep our citizens healthy, and we'll reimburse you. So we did supply that in Senate Resolution 129, and we supplied references and links. Like, I'll tell you something really interesting. I'm going off script again, Melinda, I know I have time. Florida has a home buying program where they'll give a tax credit to healthcare workers.
Yeah.
So I know if I buy a home somewhere, I'm probably going to stay there. So they do a tax credit, and that person, stays there, works there, and that's how they attract people. So each state is doing something a little bit different. Like Alaska was attracting faculty to their state with state funds, and some of the states use the ARPA funds for this too.
Well, seems like some of our one-time money might be well spent in this area.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Malin, I noticed in the capitation funding formula, which we ask for, is that we begin to track the number of students past the baseline. Are we going to track that all the way to graduation and pass rate? Because I'm tying that back to the 600 number,
Yes.
which was the
last
demand
year.
number, and how do we continue to
Yeah.
track demand?
I think similarly, there's room for us to continue to improve in that collection and to ensure, I'd say, we're heavily monitoring those completion rates, tying them directly to the funding from nurse capitation. Sometimes it's a struggle, as we know, students stop in, come out, and so I'd say there's continued improvement there, but we're excited to see that completion rates are continuing. One can imply that capitation is contributing to that.
Yes, the numbers look good. Thank you. Any other questions?
I see Wendy Palermo out there. She might be able to best answer if she wants to. Can you come down? Because I'd asked you about this at the last meeting out in the hallway. about the LPN graduates, the dropping of them, or any other comments about LPNs and the trends we're seeing, and also about the effect of COVID and the salaries is what I asked you about. The nurses are complaining about their salaries going down, and you explained that to me. Maybe that could be of interest on the LPN.
Yeah, thank you so much, Commissioner. It's good to see.
Can you turn your mic on?
It's on? Oh, sorry. I've never had that problem before, speaking up. Good morning. My name is Wendy Palermo. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for LCTCS, and I'm also a nurse. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to that. The difference that I think what we need to talk about when we speak about LPN is knowing that their education is quite different than the registered nurse program. In the RN program, you have a lot of general education courses that students must take before they're in clinical. In the LPN program, a nursing student can, in day one, enter into an LPN program. It's a technical diploma. So when you talk about attrition, you want to kind of put those, it's like apples and oranges. A student who struggles with literacy, numeracy, in the gen eds, they're going to be stalled in those early courses before they're in clinical. So an RN program, attrition is typically calculated at 150% of clinical courses, versus the LPN program, the LPN board calculates it at 100%. So if it's a 4-semester program and they have to repeat, then it's calculated immediately, versus when a student can maybe take math once or twice or English. So that's the differences between the LPN and the RN. So I do appreciate that in highlighting that difference. And what was your other one?
About the nurses complaining about the salaries. There's a great need for nurses, but I'm hearing they're upset about the salaries.
So Regent Pryor, I haven't heard of a nurse who had a pay cut since COVID. So I'd be interested in understanding the feedback in regards to nurses making comments about decreases in pay. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Is that what
Yeah.
you're hearing as well?
No, I haven't met a nurse who is making less after the escalation in salaries during COVID.
Well, Regent Pryor is in Region 7, and I know that he has a large nursing population up there. And remember, I'm education and training, but I am a nurse, so I'm just going to go for now I'm going to put my nurse hat on. During the peak of COVID, travel nursing was very high. And so you were seeing salaries and people were competing for those nurses. And so now as federal dollars have started to go away, I mean, they're not, so you're going to see more nurses who are not going to have as many travel assignments or paying at that peak salary. And you're going to see nurses are going to go back from those traveling back to maybe full-time or part-time traditional salaries, but it's still high wage, high demand, but it's probably, I don't want to make up numbers in salary, but they were very high during COVID in the traveling space.
So what
yes.
Wendy is translating is the leverage of that escalation that was there during COVID is gone. So as we've come out of COVID, that travel premium is gone too. And so you're then going back into what is your normal, but even those salaries are far more competitive.
It's a wonderful career. And I do want to just personally say, and she's actually, my sister is an RN and she's traveling right now in the state and she's close. So there are still opportunities to travel. There still is a huge shortage, as you indicated earlier. But we are seeing some of the I'm hearing also that some of the salaries are starting to taper down
Thank you.
with the market.
Any other questions? Thank you,
Yeah.
Wendy, as well.
Wendy knows I ask this at our board meetings all the time. Can you talk about the diversity and especially relative to admission to I know we typically see a large number of African American students, particularly at the top of the funnel who want to be in the nursing programs, but coming out in terms of getting admitted to the nursing programs and then, most importantly, graduating from the nursing programs. Can you talk about that in your data? Are we tracking that? What trends are we seeing, et cetera?
Supervisor Jackson, you know that I'm passionate about that.
Well, I'm asking them.
Oh, and them, okay, I'm sorry.
It's actually on page 7. If
Yeah,
you want the data, it's actually on page 7 in our report, members.
Thank you so much for that question. We are definitely tracking at all levels, APRN, RN, and LPN. And what we do see is that our LPN population most closely reflects our population of Louisiana. So we would hope that our RN and APRN populations will become more diverse, because we have research that shows that when you have a diverse workforce treating the population that kind of is similar, you have better outcomes.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we're working on it, just from a profession-wide, we would like to have more diversity and inclusion.
Do we have special programs in place to provide support? We have these funds. Do we have we put in strategies, or do we have programs in place to make sure that we achieve our goals in that area?
So I know some of the schools have that in place, where they have, in the nursing department, they have a DEI portion. I know for sure LSU has this in place. They have a director of DEI for nursing, like really looking at that. I can tell you from the profession standpoint, but Wendy and I are in LSNA, we have a DEI task force that we're looking at the state level to see how we can increase diversity in nursing. And what's interesting about nursing is being a male is also a diverse group for us, because we're a female-dominated industry. So we're looking at how we can encourage more minority students, more male students to take an interest in nursing and to even start that journey to apply for nursing. And there was a lot of discussion about how do we bridge the gap from LPN to RN as well, since the LPN population does mimic our Louisiana population. How do we get the LPNs who want to be RNs and bridge that gap to help them get over? You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Dr. Burke mentioned the Senate Resolution 129, and so we will take that as our next report.
Okay. So Senate Resolution 129 was actually a study that we were charged with from the legislature to look at statewide retention and nurse well-being. We've had a lot of discussion about COVID, and we all know COVID impacted the well-being of everybody, but especially those who were on the front lines with COVID. So we wanted to do a pulse check. And then we also wanted to talk about retention, because we often talk about recruitment, but as we all know, if we recruit, and we don't retain, it's like pouring into a bucket with a hole in it. So it's like, how do we keep these nurses in Louisiana once they graduate, once we train them, you get that year. So that's really what this study was looking at. We went the extra step to make sure that the study had rigor, and we had it IRB approved through LSU. It was a survey sent out to all of the nurses, registered nurses and LPNs. And it was a total of 1,209 total responses. So we found this to be interesting. How likely are you to advise a qualified individual to pursue a career in nursing? So the definitely would is great, the 30%, the 35% probably would, but what was really concerning to our group was that about 35% probably would not or definitely would not. So that speaks a lot to where we are as a profession, as far as recruiting within our profession. So the next question we had concerning staffing, and this goes a lot to your demand questions of, is there a shortage? Concerning staffing, how often does your unit have the right number of nursing staff with the right knowledge and skills? So as we see all the time was 7%, but as you continue to go down the list, we have less than 25% of the time was 21%, and from 25 to 49% of the time is 25%. So that's almost half, saying that less than 50% of the time they have the staff that they need. So that kind of speaks to, do we still need nurses? We definitely still need nurses, and we need nurses to keep the nurses that we have. So the next one we were looking at, we've been doing a lot of work with workplace violence and environments of care. So we asked the question, in the past year in your work, Have you experienced any of the following? And then please select all that apply. I'm really excited that 44% of the people had never experienced any of this. But then when you look at 12% experienced sexual harassment, 16% experienced physical abuse, 20% experienced discrimination, and then 50% experienced verbal abuse. So that speaks to, we need to, one, prepare our students to come into this workforce, because this is what they're going to experience, and then two, we need to try to change this workforce so we can retain people and keep them here.
Quick question on that previous slide.
Uh-huh.
Is that from patients or from their supervisors?
We have a breakdown for you.
The next slide, sir.
It's like y'all are reading my mind. So who's involved?
That's an engaged board.
Yes. Who's involved in the verbal abuse experiences? So when we're talking about verbal abuse, and I'll tell you, I'll give away the secret, before we go through all of these, patients outscore everybody in all of them. And then their family members come in a close second. But with the verbal abuse, it includes administrators, nurse managers, other healthcare professionals, other nurses, from physicians. So a lot of this, you're working in high-stress environments. This kind of speaks to our need for things like team steps and how do you communicate effectively and, what's appropriate communication. But this does chip away at the workforce, the incivility.
Let me ask, do you have any figures that give what the average income for a staff teacher, professor, is compared to the average income of a nurse?
What I can tell you is that you make more in we've had a lot of discussions about this in our council. As a nurse, you make more in practice than you do in academia, and that we were below some of the national benchmarking for our faculty.
So we're not on par with the national average for what we pay the professors that teach those to be nurses. Do you know how much disparity there is between the salaries of a nurse, and I don't know whether we pick out a registered nurse or what, but probably a registered nurse, and a professor?
I can get it for you, but I can tell you from our discussions and what I know, we're kind of doing both. You make more in practice at the bedside.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Terry, do they have any thoughts about nurse practitioners?
So the next we have is sexual harassment.
Practitioners not being shown
So this was
in
overarchingly
comparison.
from patients as well, 85%, but then you see 22% from family members, 16% from physicians, 14% from other nurses, and then 8% from other healthcare professionals. And I will put the caveat in, if you look at these two at the bottom, it says total respondents. Because these were sensitive questions, we didn't require everybody to answer them. And then we also didn't capture those who have said they've not experienced this. So it was a cascade question. So if you mark that you experienced it, then you would go to the next level to say how you experienced it. So this one was 540 respondents, and then the sexual harassment was 125 respondents. And I can tell you how this relates with the academic setting is knowing how to navigate these very complex situations as they arrive. I actually had a clinical group that I was teaching, and we had an incident of discrimination, and it was how to navigate with that student, with that patient, with that staff, how you move through that. So the next one we have is who's involved in physical abuse. So we'll be very happy to know that we are not beating each other up as staff. All of our physical assaults were coming from patients and family members. So 171 people responded to this, and 98% of what occurred came from patients. So that's pretty much just the work environment. We have a lot of work that I'll touch on with our recommendations that we're doing for workplace violence and having safer environments for staff, for students who are learning in those environments, and everyone. The next question we ask is, what would make you stay? What would influence you to reconsider leaving your plans at your present position? So we took the top 4. So it was kind of, it's not funny, but more respect from administration showed up. We expected salary to show up, and we expected staffing to be there. But more respect from administration, more flexible scheduling, higher salary and benefits, and better staffing were our top. So our recommendations, and we had more graphs, but those were the ones that kind of really screamed at us. Our recommendations were to promote transition to practice programs. We're hearing a lot of feedback that when the students are coming from the academic setting and then moving into practice, there's a gap there, and they need something to bridge that gap so they can be successful and stay in those jobs. And then we want to endorse the work that was done on House Concurrent Resolution 36, which I also chaired. It's the Workplace Violence Task Force that we've had in place for 2 years. And then to explore the feasibility of a statewide marketing campaign to promote nursing as a career. I will say the career of nursing took a heavy hit during COVID. We went from being heroes to not being believed really quickly. And we may need to change the narrative to get people to be interested in picking up the baton.
Any questions for Dr.
This
before I-
may not relate to Senate Resolution 129 specifically, but maybe I missed it, but where are our nurse practitioners in this hierarchy of issues? Are they getting plenty of money, or the demand for them is low, high? Where does our nurse practitioners fit into this hierarchy?
So in the Senate Resolution 29, I could segregate everybody out, but we had everybody included. So that included nurse practitioners, that included licensed practical nurses and registered nurses.
Okay, so they're in those.
Yeah, they're also in those numbers.
Generally, how are nurse practitioners demand? What is it? I assume it's quite high.
I think it's fluctuating. And I think as new models of care and creative ways of providing more access to care emerge, is going to continue to fluctuate. Kind of to what I was saying earlier about the nurse midwives. As those programs grow and they have more of those students come out, and we look at what's the best way for us to use nurse midwives in Louisiana, I would suspect that that demand would grow. Because right now we have a small subset, and we haven't been using them as much. But when we have the opportunity, I would suspect that we would.
It just seems to me over the last 10 years that you can't go to a clinic or a doctor's office that doesn't have a nurse practitioner, which
Yeah.
was scarce as hen's teeth 20 years ago.
Because we also have a physician shortage.
Because what?
We also have a physician shortage.
Yeah. So that's why I'm wondering if the demand for nurse practitioners was even higher perhaps than some of the others.
Yeah, it's growing. I would say we need all three really bad, if I'm going to be honest with you, because we use our LPNs a lot in our post-acute setting, like our nursing homes, our SNFs, and we're starting to use them in the hospital in an acute care setting. And then the registered nurses are venturing out into multiple settings as well, in the community, in the hospital, and then the APRNs, the advanced practice nurses, are helping to offset shortages in other areas. Because when we talk about advanced practice nurses, that includes the CRNA, which is the Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist. That is the midwife, the certified nurse midwife. That is the nurse practitioner. That is, I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Clinical nurse specialist. So all of those individuals fall into the APRN group.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Just one comment. Have you all socialized these results with the Louisiana Organization of Nurse Leadership and LHA as it relates to some of the pieces that are around workplace environment?
Absolutely. So LHA and LONL sit on the Nursing Supply and Demand group, and we went over these results, and they've started pushing out things like team steps that they're offering. And even with the workplace violence stuff, they're offering workplace violence educational offerings.
Thank you.
And just to backtrack, we've done a lot of work over the past 3 years of workplace violence. We had a bill that passed. It became the Lynn Truxillo bill. That was the nurse that we lost in Baton Rouge. And that's a lot of communication with signage where we're communicating to the public. It will not be tolerated, and it is a felony. And then we've continued that work to try and gather some data and tracking of like where these incidents are happening and who are the perpetrators, to try and have some root cause analysis, to have some action plans to continue to build on that.
Thank you for your leadership on that.
You're welcome.
Members, this item was for informational purposes only and does not require any action. Melinda, do we have any other business? No. Having no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Second? Second. Any discussion, any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? We are adjourned, members. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Sterling, and great information there. Next up is the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Due to Regent David's absence, I will appoint Regent Sterling to chair that committee as well. So Regent Sterling, can you please take over?
Thank you. I'd like to call the Academic and Student Affairs Committee to order. Dr. Denley, would you please call the roll?
I'd be happy to. Regent David. Regent Finley. Regent Creed. Regent Meyer.
Here.
Regent Solomon. Regent Sterling.
Here.
Regent Lebray. LCTCS representative. LSU representative. Southern representative. And UL system representative. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll be moving to the consent agenda items. Tristan, please proceed.
Thank you. Yes, so the first item is our consent agenda. It just includes a list of routine staff approvals and progress reports on new degree programs, and senior staff recommend approval of those items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Members, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items? So moved. Second? Any discussion, any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We'll move on to item 4 under academic programs. Dr. Dentley, please continue.
Thank you. Yes, so today's academic program that I'm presenting is a BA in chemistry at LSU A&M. As you might imagine, this is not a new discipline for LSU. They've had a long-standing and very successful chemistry degree, a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry for a considerable amount of time. This new program is a new Bachelor's of Arts program in chemistry that is intended to provide a significant amount more flexibility. The Bachelor of Science program, which is accredited by the American Chemical Society, is really a bachelor's degree which is intended for people to go specifically into chemistry fields and be professional chemists. This new program is very flexibly designed to allow people to use their chemistry skills in a whole variety of different settings, as technical writers or as medical and health service managers, research analysts, even data scientists, and of course may also lead to medical school or to other things, just as a Bachelor of Science might as well. And so we really like this idea of creating bachelor's degrees which really allow people to, I think you've heard me talk before about being able to bring your field to your work in a variety of different ways. And so I really want to thank LSU A&M for bringing this, what will be a unique program across the state. So senior staff certainly recommend approval of the BA in chemistry at LSU A&M.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Dr. Denley? Hearing no questions, members, senior staff recommends the approval of the BA chemistry program at LSU. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second? Second. Any discussion, any further questions? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Dr. Denley, I understand you also have another item of business in regards to the Post-Secondary Inclusive Education Council. What update do you have for us, please?
Yeah, so just this is really an information item to let you know about the work of the Post-Secondary Inclusive Education Advisory Council. So this council was created by Act 682 of the 2022 legislature, and it really asked the Board of Regents through the work of the council to look at a variety of different programs offered across the state for young adults with intellectual disabilities. So these programs, and you can see that actually in many ways the initial work of the council was just to simply understand across our state how many programs do we have and how many students do those programs serve. So as things currently stand, we have 6 programs, and you can see the institutions that are providing those programs. They together serve around 115 students, those programs are really wonderful programs. I had the pleasure of visiting the program down at Nichols just a few months ago, and so the programs provide just a whole variety of different experiences for those students. They provide them experience around life skills. They have work-based experiences so that they can really be able to understand how they might contribute in a work setting. They audit courses across the institution. They're involved in student activities too. So they really are just a wonderful addition to the campus society, and certainly a wonderful addition to the offerings that we have across the state. So part of the work of Act 682 was actually that provided $1 million to really enhance and expand the existence of these programs. And certainly I'm very happy to tell you about programs that have been now awarded by the council. So you can see that the council provided a support of $80,000 to 3 brand new programs, one at LSU Alexandria, one at LSU A&M, and one at Southern University New Orleans, and then also provided funds of $50,000 to 4 existing programs to expand the footprint of those existing programs. And those expansions are in a variety of different settings, either just simply expanding the number of students that they will be able to serve, expanding the experiences that the students who are in those programs might be able to experience, and in some cases really solidifying the ongoing sustainability of those programs. As you might imagine, there were some things that we were very much hoping for when we put out the call for those new programs. If I go back and you look at the list, even my poor geography around Louisiana, which is getting better day by day, you can basically draw a line across the middle of the state, and all of those programs are in the south of the state. And so we were very much hoping that we would see a new program there to serve the north of the state. Similarly, there are no HBCUs in that list. And so we were very much hoping, again, that also we would see that. You can see that in the list of new programs. Very thrilled to see the new program at Southern New Orleans. So we now will have representation in our HBCUs. As well as this initial round of support, the committee asked that we would go out for a second round. We did, in fact, go out for a second round. The 2 new programs that came in that second round, they are currently under review, but I'm thrilled to tell you that one of those programs is in the north. And so I very much expect for that program to be supported at the upcoming meeting of the council. So I think we can certainly point to a significant amount of success in this initial work, and I'm very much thrilled to see the new programs that we have and the way in which that will go on to support these students in ways that we've not been able to in the past. So as I said, this was an information item, but happy to answer any other questions that you have about this program and its future.
Any questions?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we have 6 presently, or we're going to get 2 additional programs?
So we have 6 currently. We will have 3 additional programs over and above that. And then, as I say, one of the programs in the second round is also a new program. So if that is all approved, we will have 4 new programs that will be up and going in the coming year.
Does that include 2 at LSUA?
So there's the LSUA program is an interesting program. So LSUA's program is actually up and going this year. This year was their very first year to be in operation. The way that the council set up their criteria, a program would need to be in place for 3 years to be counted as an existing program. And so LSUA was sort of in this already not yet situation of they are up and going, but they are absolutely brand new. And so certainly I know they very much welcome to having the additional assistance of those $80,000. Yep.
Any other questions? Hearing no other questions, Dr. Denley, is there any other business?
There is none.
Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second?
Second.
Any questions, any discussions? All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Sterling, for taking over. So you all, what we're going to do is we're going to break for a quick 25, 30-minute lunch, and we'll come back at 12:05, 12:10 for the Research and Sponsored Initiatives Committee, and we're going to have another quick conversation over here. So as quickly as we can get over here, I think we have a spirited discussion. So appreciate you all. Thank you. Okay. So we'll welcome back, and a little bit longer than we expected, but great conversation. We'll continue our committee meetings with the Research and Sponsored Initiatives Committee, and due to the chair and vice chair's absence, I'm appointing Regent Seal to chair the committee. Regent Seal, please call the meeting to order, sir.
Thank you. I would like to call the Research and Sponsored Initiatives Committee to order and request Ms. Robeson to call the roll.
Yes, sir. Chair Finley, Vice Chair May, Regent Aubrey. Present. Regent Seal.
Here.
Regent Solomon.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you proceed with the consent agenda, item 3?
Yes, sir. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. The first is the appointment of an endowed chairholder without a national search at the LSU Ag Center. This is to appoint Dr. Collins Kimbang, who is an existing professor in sugarcane research at the Ag Center, to a newly formed endowed chair that was matched last year, established by the Louisiana Sugarcane Association. The donor has approved this appointment. His credentials have been reviewed. He's an international expert and a recognized sugarcane researcher, and the senior staff recommends approval of that. The second item is use of earnings in a vacant endowed chair. There is an endowed chair at the University of New Orleans that will soon be vacant, but assigned to that chair and paid for out of that chair's income is a graduate student who will be graduating in 2024. This action will allow that graduate student to continue to be paid through the chair while a national search is ongoing. And the senior staff recommends approval of both items.
Members, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion passes. The next item is repurposing non-state earnings in an endowed chair. Would you proceed?
Yes, sir. LSU Health Sciences Center New Orleans is requesting, based on a donor request, to move some of the earnings associated with that donor's contribution to an existing endowed chair away from that chair to create 2 new endowed professorships. This is consistent with MIFA, the legislation that dictates donor rights related to these kinds of endowments. It only affects the earnings on the donor portion of the chair. It does not affect any earnings on the support fund portion of the chair. And because these monies were previously associated with this endowed chair, they will not be eligible for match in the future. And with that, the staff recommends approval of this action.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion passes. Next item?
Yes, sir. The next item is a statewide STEM network designation for the La STEM program, which exists under the auspices of the Board of Regents. The reason for requesting this designation, which does seem on the surface ceremonial, is many of the federal agencies and non-state entities that are funding the kind of statewide work that's going on in STEM disciplines are now looking for a STEM network designation, a statewide network designation from applicants. So this will allow the La STEM network, which consists of the Regents' offices, the central statewide La STEM, plus the 9 regional centers that are associated with every region of the state, to act as they're currently acting as a complete statewide network, and to use that designation when they seek federal or other outside funding. With that, we recommend approval.
Members, you've heard the recommendation from senior staff. Is there a motion? Got a motion? Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you, sir. The next agenda item is an update on the Cybersecurity Education Management Council and the Louisiana Cybersecurity Talent Initiative Fund. These two bodies were created in the 2020 regular session. The council oversees and considers matters related to degree and certificate programs in cybersecurity across Louisiana. The Talent Initiative Fund can receive external donations as well as legislative appropriations for expenditure to assist in supporting these programs. The CEMC is tasked with making recommendations to the board when there are funds available for expenditure with respect to distributions, and they are charged to review the list of degree and certificate programs in determining final distribution amounts. We have an RFA currently out. Well, actually, it's not currently out. It is now closed. It closed on April 17th. We received numerous applications, and before you see the process and timeline that we use to make determinations about the funding. The funding is insufficient this year to fund all of the proposals, and so they are scored by a competitive process. The scoring rubric is released at the time of the RFA, and the members of the Cybersecurity Education Management Council score these proposals or these applications and make recommendations. Unfortunately, the timing of this process is off of the board's timing, so we have to request board approval of the decisions prior to the decisions actually being made because we do not have a meeting in May. These contracts have to, because this is current fiscal year money, these contracts have to be out by June and have to be fully executed and agreed to by June 30. So we have to ask for your approval prior to the CEMC meeting, which they will do on May 10th. Just to give you a profile of the applications we did receive, we received 10 from 10 institutions. This is a pretty robust application pool. Last year, we received only 6 applications. 5 of these applications were new projects. That's to support new initiatives or new programs, and 5 are sustained, which means they've been supported by the CTIF before and are looking for sustaining dollars. We received a total of $1.5 million, a little more than $1.5 million in funding requests, and we have $1 million appropriated with the council planning to make those decisions on May 10th based on the scoring rubric that was published with the RFA. So with that, we recommend prior approval be given to CEMC to make these decisions during its May 10th meeting and proceed.
Members, you've heard the recommendation for prior approval made from senior staff. Is there a motion for approval?
I so move.
Got a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
One question. Who makes up the council?
The council membership is determined in statute, and it's comprised of membership from the institutional system, or from the public systems. All the funds have to be provided to public institutions, so the public systems, various government agencies, Workforce Commission, LED, and the Governor's Office has an appointee. Dr. Reed has an appointee.
Commissioner, can I get a list of that?
Oh, absolutely.
About it?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further questions?
No.
Carry your final item.
All right, the final item is the most wonderful day of the year for us in research and sponsored initiatives. This is the culmination of 9 months of very hard work from the staff, running a competitive process to decide the Board of Regents Support Fund award recommendations for fiscal year 22-23. So what is the Support Fund? Just a reminder, it is a constitutionally dedicated fund created in 1986, so this is 35 years strong of providing support to higher education throughout Louisiana. The constitutional dedication is made from earnings on a trust fund. the Louisiana Education Quality Trust Fund. Annually, the earnings are distributed as follows: 25% to Treasury for fund growth, the remaining 75% split evenly between Bessie and the Board of Regents, Bessie for K-12 support, Board of Regents for higher education support. We, on the higher education side, are charged to do two things. We are charged to improve the quality of higher education and enhance Louisiana's economic development, and we can do that through 4 constitutionally designated programs: targeted research and development, endowment of chairs for eminent scholars, recruitment of superior graduate students, and enhancement of academic research in agricultural departments and units. You'll note from these 4 programs that everything we do is in support of the academic missions of institutions, whether it's research, equipment purchases, all of it is academic in nature. All of the funding is academic in nature. How do we spread the money? We do it by funding various programs across those 4 areas, and you'll see those programs on the slide. We fund 11 different programs, starting with federal matching, which is we are the source of most federal dollars, or most matching dollars to federal awards to fund university-based research, including EPSCoR awards, NASA, Department of Energy, and so on. We also fund several grant programs. You'll see those in blue, several endowment matching programs. You'll see those in red. We start at the base, which is our enhancement program. That provides the broadest base of support for various activities on the campuses, things from equipment purchases, lab fitting, curricular enhancements, and so forth. We have several R&D programs which support faculty who are doing high-level university-based research to promote competitiveness for our researchers. We support graduate students through graduate endowments to help support those researchers and other activities on the campuses. And we endow chairs, and the endowed chairs are really to support the creme de la creme, the highest quality faculty, the most productive senior faculty on our campuses. What kind of awards do we make? Most of the money we spend, about 70%, in grants, which is direct support to the campuses for activities. So we write a contract, the campus gets the money, and the campus spends it as we stipulate in the contract. The remaining 30% are for endowments. These are matching funds to private sector or other non-state dollars to create a permanent endowment which generates funds year over year to support the work that's stipulated in the donor agreement and in our policies. Our competitive process, as I said, it's a 9-month process. It's very extensive. It starts with the release of RFPs in July, as early in July as we can get it. Every proposal we receive is externally evaluated by experts out of state who have been screened for conflicts of interest. We publish scoring rubrics in our RFPs so everyone knows how projects are judged and what the qualifications are to win an award. Those external reviews lead to published consultant reports. They're all available to the general public on our website. Then we bring reports and recommendations to you for board action in April, and then that's followed by contracting of all of these, and they have to be contracted by June 30. I would like at this point to recognize some very important people in this process and give tremendous thanks to the staff a very small staff who works tirelessly on this very big project every year. Brian Jones, who's our senior grants administrator. Stand up, Brian. Christine Norton, who is our Assistant Commissioner for Support Fund Administration. Chris Medier, who is our Senior Endowment Program Administrator. And not here is Jennifer Stevens, who does all of the back-end work for us, make sure all of our consultants are paid. I'd also like to recognize Angela Mastenich in our finance unit and DC Kirkland in our finance unit, who do endless work paying our bills, making sure that our grantees are happy, making sure that our grantees get their money, and making sure that we stay out of trouble in these funds. So thank you so much to all of you. Okay, so that's our competitive process. That's the dates. We go from July to June. It's a full year by the time we get all the money spent. So, how do we judge the projects? Basically, what we're looking for are three big things: quality, impact, need. We want to see that the things that we're supporting are high quality. We want to see that they're impacting appropriately to their design and appropriately to the investment that we're making in them. And we want to see that they're meeting a real need in higher education in Louisiana. So there are several general measures. We're looking for potential success. All of our consultants look at risk to reward, how risky, say, is a research project, because part of research is success, that your hypothesis is proven right. Part of it is failure. It's proving that your hypothesis is not right. But they are looking at that risk to reward. How likely is this to be successful? They're looking to make sure everything addresses program goals and requirements. And for each of these, no applicant comes into this process not knowing how we're going to judge and score their proposals. And on the back end of this process, no applicant leaves a proposal with us that they do not get debriefing on. Whether you are successful or unsuccessful, you will get your reviewer comments on your project. We do this to make sure that they can improve. They know what they did right, they know what they did wrong, they know where they can improve, and they can come back in the next cycle or a cycle after that and submit the project and possibly be successful. We've had lots of experience with these projects coming back and being funded after a year of not being funded. For the non-competitive awards, we only have one non-competitive program, and that's endowed professorships. Those are funded on a funding guarantee. Each campus is guaranteed 2 slots per year. If we have funds left over, which means a campus didn't request its 2 slots, we basically fund around the submitted projects until we reach the end of the funding. And everyone receives an equal per slot funding. It has the same basic standards of all of our other programs. It has to support academic, research, or agricultural programs. It has to be supplementary and enhancing. It can't be used for operating costs, but it is non-competitive. So just to give you a sense of what this year's competition looked like, we get a lot of proposals. We got almost 400 proposals requesting almost $40 million. So the demand is high in these programs. We can fund 36 campuses submitted, which is almost all of the campuses that are eligible for the support fund submitted competitive proposals this year. Of the 40 million approximate that was submitted, we can provide support for about 10 million. So about 25% of what was submitted in terms of dollars, and about 33% by project. We are recommending funding for 127 projects at 29 campuses for $10,293,597. That does leave a substantial number unfunded, but only 7 campuses, only 20% of campuses that submitted to these programs didn't get funding for 1 or more of their projects. And if you want details about the projects that are recommended for funding, the board materials that were provided prior to the meeting contain information and rank orders for all of those that were recommended across all programs. For the endowed professorships program, as I said, it's non-competitive, which means every campus that submits gets something of what they requested. This year, we had $2 million budgeted, which will fund 43% of the slots submitted. We're recommending 76 slots, or 52% of those submitted at 19 campuses. That leaves $2.6 million for 70 slots unfunded, but recognize that those are only at 3 campuses, and 2 of those campuses, one campus has $20,000 remaining of its slots requested, and another has $240,000. The remainder is at a single campus. So with that, this is the summary of what we are requesting, or what we're recommending for support fund awards for this year. 204 total projects for $12,293,000. That includes professorships. That's the difference in the numbers. And our contingencies, first, you will have noted in the board materials that the current revenue estimate is below what we're asking to expend this year, but we currently have in the account sufficient monies to cover all of these award recommendations because in a prior year, we earned more money than we were able to expend in that year, and that money has been carried forward. The support fund is a closed loop, which means that any money that comes into the support fund has to stay in the support fund. It can't be deployed for other uses. So this is what we are recommending to you. If revenues come in much lower, we have contingencies to make reductions, and it's basically pro rata reductions across all of the competitive programs. The staff recommendation is that you approve these funding recommendations with contingencies as presented, and I would love to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, members, senior staff recommends approval of the fiscal year 22-23 support fund funding recommendations with contingencies as presented. Is there a motion?
I make the motion that we approve funding of the projects, 204 projects at $12,293,597.
Motion has been made. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Any discussions? Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn this committee? It's been moved that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We stand adjourned. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. So, moving on to statewide program committee meetings. Regent Meir, please call your committee to order, sir.
I would like to call the statewide programs committee to order. Dr. Boutte, can you please call the roll?
Chair Meir,
Present.
Vice Chair Carter. Here. Regent Aubrey.
Here.
Regent Ewing. Regent Finley. Regent Wild. Regent Williams-Brown. Here. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Boutte. We'll start with agenda item number 3, the consent agenda. Please proceed.
There's one agenda item, Regents, and this is the regular exceptions. As you know, these are exceptions to maintain continuous full-time enrollment. There were 4 exceptions in this bunch, and the Law School Advisory Board has reviewed each of them and recommends approval.
Okay, the LATTA Advisory Board recommends approval for the consent agenda items. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
I have a motion by Regent Brown,
Second.
seconded by Regent Aubrey. Any discussion or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Ayes have it. And now we'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion by Regent Aubrey. Can I get a second? Second by Regent Brown. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all. Y'all helping us catch up. Now on to the Planning, Research, and Performance Committee meeting. Regent Williams-Brown, please call your meeting to order, ma'am.
Thank you. I'd like to call the Planning, Research, and Performance Committee to order. Dr. Craig, will you call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Regent Williams-Brown,
Here.
Regent Pryor. Here. Regent Creed. Here. Regent Finley. Regent Sterling.
Here.
Regent Wild. Regent Lobret.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Our first item is number 3, the consent agenda. Dr. Craig, please proceed.
Yes, good afternoon. On the consent agenda, we only have consent agenda items this afternoon for PRP. For licensure, Act 129 licensure schools, we have one initial license, which is from Fielding Graduate University. This is a private university in Santa Barbara, California, and they offer currently 10 graduate degree programs and 5 graduate certificates, mainly in psychology and education. We have 4 renewal applications for you today. Chamberlain University, Clark's Summit University, Miami International University of Art and Design, as well as World Quant University in New Orleans. Moving on to our proprietary schools, we have 4 initial applications for proprietary schools. We have 2 truck driving academies, 1 crane and rigging academy, as well as a technology hub institute in the Shreveport area. And there are 20 renewal applications for you today. And here are the 20 as I scan through them. The third item on the consent agenda is about a request from a student for restitution, if you will, for tuition. And I'll just kind of talk through the timeline a little bit for you. In September of 2021, the license for CDL Louisiana was expired due to an incomplete package, an application packet. And our team worked very hard with that particular institution to get them back up and running. But in early 2023, the school's only student claimed that the school did not provide them with the instruction as promised. So in May of 23, a hearing was held by the Proprietary Schools Commission, and they recommended a partial tuition refund for the student. And the reason why it was partial is because the institution had submitted an application to open back up again. Since that time, this particular CDL Louisiana did not open, and they have not paid the student the partial tuition that this body recommended that they do so. As such, the student made a closed school student claim. At the March 23 meeting, the Proprietary Schools Advisory Commission agreed with staff recommendation to that the student be given a full tuition refund, less the application fee. The funds are $5,850. This refund is sourced from the school's surety bond. So the funds for this is already covered under the surety bond that we have in our possession, and so we are recommending full tuition payment back to this student. Happy to answer any questions, but if there are none, senior staff recommends approval of the items on the consent agenda.
Doctor?
Yes.
With regard to the refund.
Yes.
Is it, I mean, do we have to approve that, or the institution, or are they refusing to reimburse the money?
The institution has closed. The institution had a set period of time to provide a partial tuition payment to the student. They did not do this. So now the student, in her rights, can actually apply to the closed school student claim, of which this is the process at which we do this. It's been 10 years since we've done this. It's been quite some time. But yes, this board, we are asking that this board approve the recommendation of the Proprietary Schools Advisory Commission.
So it's a rare occurrence.
It is. Yes, sir.
Who is holding the bond?
I'll ask Ms. Britton to the table. She is our Proprietary Schools Program Administrator.
Do you mean which bond company is holding the bond?
No, I mean, where is the money? Who's got the money?
At the moment, the bond company still has the money. Once this board votes, we will make the request to the bond company, and they will release those funds. The funds then are deposited in the Student Protection Fund, which then we make the request to the Student Protection Fund through Treasury, and that check is cut. So
Thank
we still
you
have
for that.
several steps to go through.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
A second? Can I get a second? Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Is there any other business, Dr. Craig?
No, ma'am.
There's no other business to come before the committee. I recommend that we adjourn. Can I get a motion for adjournment? Can I get a second?
Second.
Any questions, any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, now we're moving to the April Board of Regents meeting, and I call this meeting, we'll call the meeting to order. Members, once again, you're being streamed live. Please speak into your microphone. Make sure it's on by pressing the button, making sure the green light is on so the audience can hear you. So, Ms. Doreen, can you please call the roll, ma'am?
Regent Aubrey,
Present.
Regent Creed,
Here.
Regent David, Regent Ewing, Regent Finley, Regent Levy, Regent Lowbray,
Here.
Regent May, Regent Meir,
Present.
Regent Pryor,
Here.
Regent Seal,
Here.
Regent Solomon,
Here.
Regent Sterling,
Here.
Regent Temple,
Here.
Regent Weil, Regent Williams Brown.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Doreen. Public comments are next on the agenda. Do we have any? No? Great, okay. So, members, you've received a copy of the March 22nd, 2023 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So move.
Thank you. Motion, second? Second. Thank you. Any discussion, any question? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, chair comments. So, we've got a lot, so y'all hold on. Members, last Tuesday, we had the HBCU Advisory Council, the annual day at the Capitol. It was an amazing day, start to finish. You know, we talked about it at the end of our last meeting, and fortunately, myself and Regent Aubrey were there. We got the opportunity to kind of experience it. So we started out with that advisory council meeting, which you see here, followed by the presentation of the House and Senate floor, you know, which obviously couldn't have happened without a tour of, and we had Representative Hughes and Senator, Boudreaux. We thank both of them for the work that they did in terms of helping get the HBCUs recognized. And we concluded the day with a terrific reception at the Capitol Park Museum, where we, along with Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser, made comments, and Chief of Staff from the Mayor Sharon Weston Bruton's office unveiled the first phase of the Capitol Park Museum HBCU exhibit, which includes archives, interpretive panels, campus highlights, specifically curated artifacts and historical notes. I will say, as I looked, that everybody did a great job. Southern University's piece was really amazing. They did a super phenomenal job on their piece, and it was just a great day. The panels provided a deep history of the HBCUs in our state, and it's not a one-time thing. It's a permanent exhibit that will be there at our state museum. So it was great. I had participation from all HBCUs, where they spent the evening sharing with legislators and others on the unique vision and mission, and how to attract students from all across the country that are seeking that HBCU experience. So it was a great event. You see the commissioner there with a couple of mascots, and we once again did have a very good time. So very well attended. It was packed in there, and thank you, Regent Aubrey and Lowbray, for attending. and an absolute, I really believe she deserves an ovation. But Bree Golden and the entire Regents team, I don't see Bree here. She's not even here to get her flowers, right? But she really, she kind of led the charge in putting it together, and it was a phenomenal event. So, also wanted to share that last month, Patrick Methvin, the director of the post-secondary success at the Gates Foundation, wrote about us and our work with the Momentum Summit in their newsletter, which is sent across the nation. It's a pretty big deal, you all. He said that this was exciting because it's not every day that you get to hear leaders across the college system reflect on their progress to date and work together to chart a path forward towards increasing economic mobility for all their state's residents. He also referenced us in the 10 lessons learned about achieving equitable post-secondary outcomes at scale, and our work is being recognized, you all across the nation, and we couldn't be more proud. Board, why don't we give our staff a hand on that and putting that together and just everything going on there. Also, last month, Regent Aubrey was named president. Look at that head, okay? All right, for AT&T Louisiana. Let's give him a hand, you all. Okay, so guys, he's going to serve as leader of the company's strategic policy and corporate affairs activities, as well as guide governmental and community policy decisions. And Regent Aubrey, once again, sir, congratulations on your new title, all the work that's going to come with it. And we're supremely excited and realize we're lucky and don't take for granted having such a great talent serving on our board, basically taking the place of an absolutely amazingly talented lady before you. So thank you so much. Now, on the other side, unfortunately, we have to say farewell, speaking about a great talent, to Katerina Lobret, who actually continued what she's been doing for this year. She's been with us in our informal lunch meeting with very insightful comments that she has made the entire time she's been with us. Her year as a student member is up, but she's moving on to bigger and better things. She graduated from Delgado this fall, so we want to make sure that she has her Regents stole in hand. So we're going to hand this to her. I guess I can hand it to her. Come on. Do I go down there? How do we need to do this? We can do it up here? They might not be able to see her behind this thing. Yeah, I'm kind of short. Okay. We'll come down. We'll come down.
You're the clear stone on.
I'll put the stole on.
Yes.
Okay. So you can make sure you add this as you go across stage, but we'll do it here, you all. Let's go on the left side. All right, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
So, yes, please, your last meeting will be in June, when obviously we'll be swearing in the new member. But can you give us some insights from your experience this year?
I'm glad you asked. I was like, oh, I'm not going to give my speech? Okay. Okay, so to my fellow regents and staff, I wanted to thank everybody here at the Board of Regents, the board members, the commissioner, for all you do here. From the very beginning, everyone has been so welcoming and informational. Informational. I really appreciate this experience, and I'm going to take it with me. I think to myself how much I've grown, how much I've learned, and how many opportunities I've had. I know my term is ending, but my thirst for learning will not be quenched. I will continue doing my best with what I have and helping others along the way, and I look forward to my time at LSU in the fall. Go Tigers.
All right. Thank you so much, and obviously we'll get the opportunity to see you in this formal setting one more time. But congratulations, and you all, that actually concludes my remarks. But moving on to item 6, the master plan update. And for this month's update, we'll hear from Dr. Tristan Denley on our efforts so far, such as including all credentials of value in our master plan attainment goal. So, Dr. Denley, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, yeah, as we say every time, and we need to say every time because we need to keep it front and center in everything that we do, our North Star is to reach 60% of our adult population having a credential of value after high school by 2030. And that, in many ways, is the kind of the summing up of what it is that I want to talk about today, about how it is that we even go about measuring such a thing and how it is that we can measure our progress towards that goal. Of course, again, as we look at that goal, and it's really been a topic of conversation all day today and needs to be, again, always, that as we look at that 60%, we want that 60% to look like Louisiana. And so keeping that front and center to make sure that we understand that as we work and educate our state, we're committed to educating all of our state and opening up all those educational opportunities to all across the state. We talked a little bit before about how it is that we are going about this, that we look at it from a completer perspective, not a completion perspective, because it may well be that each person may earn multiple different awards during their life, but we are looking to turn non-awardees into awardees. And so we look at completers, and you can see that by 2030, we talked a little bit about this, that we really need to engage over and above our steady state an additional 180,000 people from across our state. And to do that, we have this overall strategy of increasing college going, improving college success, and counting all our credentials of value. Of course, last time when I was here, just whenever that was, a month or so ago, I talked about the Momentum Summit, which was really wholly focused on that middle piece, on improving college success. But what I want to do today is to touch on the other two pieces, about increasing college going and about counting all credentials of value. So first thing about increasing college going. There's been a lot of talk recently about, across our nation, the way in which a demographic cliff might impact college going. And so the first thing that I wanted to do is to talk to you about some enrollment modeling that we've been doing together with some educational partners to really try to get a really good handle on what that looks like here in Louisiana. This is what the births in Louisiana looked like in the early part of the 21st century. And as you can see, if you've seen what that chart looks like in basically every other state in the country, it doesn't look like that at all. In every other state in the country, right there at 2025, it looks like a huge and just a demographic cliff. We don't look like that in Louisiana. You can see that in many ways, actually right now, we are experiencing the most significant downturn, at least in the coming times, in our births. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you what it is that happened right there in 2005. That was Hurricane Katrina. And you can see Katrina has had an enormous impact in so many ways across our state, but of course it had an incredibly powerful impact on the number of births in that year. And here we are now in our incoming class of fall 2023 is likely to be significantly impacted by exactly that weather and disaster event. You can see that when we get to 2025, there will be a pickup between here and there will be some modest decline in the size of the high school classes between now and 2030, but nothing like the 10, 15% impact that we see in so many states across the country. So all in all, that's good news for us, because as we want to try to move towards our 2030 goal, if it really is the case that if the high school classes are continually getting smaller and smaller and smaller, as they certainly are in many other states, that would be a significant barrier for us. We do not face that barrier from a number of people perspective. Now, I would be naive to imagine that other states don't know exactly that. And so, given the fact that there are students here to recruit, of course, there will be people in other states who will be looking to recruit them in just the same way that we are looking to recruit them too. But at least when we put together then our enrollment projections based on thinking now through the way in which college going has happened over the last 5 years, and then turning the clock forward using population projections across our state, you can see that those projections paint at least an encouraging picture that that over the next few years between now and 2030, as I say, if we simply look at the last 5 years as being the pattern of college going, then across the system, across the systems, and across the state, our overall enrollment will gently increase. There's a lot of ifs to that. The first thing that I want to say is that really is letting the past inform the future, and I think, as you know, we're actually all about trying to not let the past inform the future. We would like to exceed that. And so as you look at this chart, you know that we have doubled down on a whole bunch of different kinds of initiatives to change the way in which people think about going to college, to change the way in which people engage in college. From a high school perspective, all kinds of initiatives around dual enrollment to change those pathways, but also all kinds of strategies to try to engage adults. Because in many ways, again, those birth rate statistics have everything to do with high school. They don't have to do with the million people who are out there with some college and no degree, or indeed only a high school diploma, who would very much benefit from what it is that we across the higher education endeavor have to offer them. And so, in many ways, this is, I think for us, this is the baseline. But at least the baseline is pointing up, not pointing down, and I wanted to make sure that you saw that. The second thing that I want to talk about is this idea of recognizing all credentials of value. That across our state, we talk a lot about the four systems that are part of the Louisiana Board of Regents family, but as well as our public institutions, we also have our colleagues at LACU, and of course just a few minutes ago you heard the relationships that we have with proprietary schools and our academic degree granting institutions that do business here in our state. And so it's that fuller picture that I want to think about today, as well as the 28 undergraduate serving institutions that we have in the state and our colleagues at LACU. We have something like 200 or 300 proprietary institutions that are also part and parcel of that overall picture. Far too many for us to list here on a slide. So what I'm happy to do today is to show you this, which is really the first time that we've been able to see as a complete picture all of the completers across our state, both from our public providers, from the Louisiana Board of Regents family, but also from LACU institutions, proprietary institutions, and our degree granting institutions. And this is also from a for-credit perspective and also from a not-for-credit perspective, an industry-based certification perspective. So this is for the first time our ability to be able to show you that picture. I do want to just pause a second because, just as always, you look at one slide and you go, well, that's an interesting slide. I think I do want to call out and recognize the work of my data team, Kim Kirkpatrick, Donald Beckman, Wesley Leonard, Dawn Melanson, and also Courtney Britton, who you saw earlier. Just, one slide, hundreds of hours of work to be able to create the infrastructure of being able to develop this. What I'm happy to tell you is that now, through that work, for the first time, we are no longer dependent on others telling us about our progress in Louisiana. We have really since its inception, depended on the Lumina Foundation's Stronger Nation report to tell us where are we when it comes to our 60% goal. And just recently, I think we shared with you that their most recent numbers put us right at around 48%. What I'm able to now use is the data that I just showed you together with population statistics that we have in Louisiana for us to be able to actually do that calculation ourselves, to be able to see that from here on out, if we continue to award completers in the way that I just showed you, that takes us more than halfway to our goal. Just recognizing that this is the new pace at which we are educating Louisiana. Now, that's, again, a new baseline, because the reality is that we have all kinds of other initiatives that are about to come on board, about to take grip, all of the things that we're doing through the Momentum Year, and certainly you already heard that, in the report we heard today from the nursing report, that we've seen a significant uptick in awards in healthcare, and certainly they will be reflected in next year's data, and we'll be happy to see it. But it's at least important for you to know that for the first time, and I think really uniquely across the country, we are really able to get our arms around what completion looks like in our state from a industry-based certification perspective, from a credit-bearing perspective, from a proprietary, public, and private institution perspective, and so finally are able to paint a very vivid picture of higher education here in the state of Louisiana. So that's my report today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well,
So I'm happy to, you have a question?
Well, I was just going to, so you said we're at 48% of our goal presently?
So our goal is at 60,
Right.
60%. Right now, we are at, I believe it's 47.8% of our adult population between the ages of 25 and 64 who have either a 4-credit credential or an industry-based certification.
So given your comments and initiatives, it seems like we'll achieve our goal then, don't you think? If
Absolutely.
momentum and trajectory.
Let's speak it into existence. I think
Yes.
that's exactly right.
Good report, thank you.
Thank you.
okay, so committee reports and recommendations together. Why don't we just vote on them together? So unless any board member wants to take it up separately, which I didn't think that there.
I'll make a motion to approve all committee and standing committee reports in global.
Great. So, motion, we have a second? Second? Great. In global, my favorite. Okay. Any discussion, any question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion passes. Next item, Commissioner of Higher Education report and recommendations, please, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Tristan, thank you for the report, and Regent Creed for speaking it into existence. We do not have an aspirational goal. We are working diligently to deliver on the goal for Louisiana and our citizens, and so I'm very excited about the work, a big team effort to make that happen. Before I share Second Chance Month, I do want to recognize Ashanti Jones from ULM, who is here observing our meeting. She's in a leadership program. Yes, please stand. I'm delighted to have her with us. Thank you, Ashanti. I also want to welcome back some new moms. Malin and Hannah are here. Babies are in good hands, and so we're there. And Kim Small, who has been under the weather, and I'm delighted to see her back there as well. So, it's Regents family, and so we look forward to always checking on our folks and welcoming them back. It is Second Chance Month, as you see on the slide, and so that's a time for us to really focus on individuals, communities, and agencies talking about the importance of reentry for people who were incarcerated or formerly incarcerated. And we are doing a lot of work around that in terms of education to employment pipeline. Our strategic plan, our master plan specifically calls out injustice involved as talent to be developed along with all the other today's students. And so you see on the slide a couple of things that have happened this month. I had an opportunity at the top to speak at the Return for Good conference, partnering with the Department of Corrections. Dr. Vosper is here. She also had an opportunity to talk about that. The slide on the right with the two little boys at the table, I have to tell you, I was completely blown away by the presentation. It's called Bars Without Barriers. Cyport in Shreveport, the Cyport Discovery Center partners with the Caddo Correctional Facility. And incarcerated fathers, they teach them how to engage with their children on STEM activities. And so the children come, they work with their fathers. They learn, this one they were learning about dissecting flowers and the different parts of the flowers. And then they had snacks. I had an opportunity to visit with the kids, but also with the fathers. All of them are in a carpentry program or in a fiber program to be able to do broadband work, fiber optics program. So a big shout out to Cyport. They're part of our STEM initiative, and the Department of Corrections said, we love this one, we want to see it in every part of the state of Louisiana, so we're going to try to move that forward. At the bottom, you see a photo of the governor's education workforce sub-cabinet members who were able to go to Angola. We were invited to look at their educational programs as well, really phenomenal vocational programs. Wendy's here, so there was a phenomenal staff member who ran the programs at LCTCS, I think Mr. Easterman, who is now, Eastland. He is now running the program at Angola. And so we met mentors and instructors and life coaches and safety coaches who were working in welding, in automotives, in all kinds of programs. And when we walked into the welding program, I said, what's going on in here? What do you do? And the gentleman turned around and he said, we change lives here. And when we ask our staff, what do we do at the Board of Regents, they say the same thing. We change lives here. And so the connection of the conversation was phenomenal. We have, starting this Friday, an Untapped Talent Summit because we know to ensure that individuals have a second chance, we have to make sure not just they have good, solid, rigorous educational programs that are high quality, but that business and industry is giving them a second chance so that they can be employed. And so Dr. Vosper is leading the Untapped Talent Summit that has partners, hundreds of partners from across the state coming together to talk about how do we connect talent to our local business and industry. So I think that's very important. I'll also say, as I was this morning watching a great story about Harry Belafonte and his phenomenal work, that I had an opportunity to meet him when I was at Sing Sing Prison. I was the commencement speaker there, and he was there, part of the work that he does, reaching out to those individuals. And he said, I brought this young kid with me. You might know him. His name is Usher. And I said, yes, I do, sir. But I can remember how patient he was meeting with every individual, their families, their children who wanted to have autographs and shake hands, and you know, his big smile when I spoke, it was just phenomenal. And so seeing the stories about his life well lived today on the news reminds me of the power that we have to make a difference and to lean into the idea of second chances. So just wanted to share that as we celebrate Second Chance Month in a big way. We also want to talk about excellence here at the Board of Regents. We have two staffers who were named best in their class in their fields of work. Allison Smith, who is our Assistant Commissioner for Student Health and Wellness, was named the 2023 Community Member of the Year by the Association of Recovery and Higher Education for her collegiate recovery work. She helped launch the state's first collegiate recovery program at Southeastern Louisiana University. Very proud of her. And Dr. Chris Yandel, who is our Assistant Commissioner for Public Affairs, will be recognized tomorrow as the 2023 Practitioner of the Year by the Public Relations Association of Louisiana. And the comms team also will be receiving additional awards tomorrow for HBCU Day, for our internal newsletter, for our podcast. And so award-winning team that bring their time and talent to the Board of Regents, and we are so grateful and so appreciative to them. Now, speaking of more talent, it is Administrative Professionals Day, and so we are very excited to recognize our phenomenal second-to-none Regents of administrative professionals. So we will get our chairman in place to talk about our Magnificent Seven, a collective group of problem solvers who we depend on each and every day. They are receiving double recognition. Today, the chairman is on behalf of the board recognizing them. Tomorrow, I'm very excited that we're going to take our administrative professionals to breakfast at the governor's mansion. So looking forward to that. So ladies, when your name is called, please come forward to receive a small token of appreciation. Michelle Brandon. I feel like I should say, come on down, come on down. Thank you, Michelle. Ann Evans. I will mention Kara Landry in case she's listening in, very important member of our team, not in attendance today, but we're thinking of her. Kim Langlois. Thank you, Kim. Emily Skyke in my office. Carla Smith. Great to have you with us, Carla. And Darcy Wagesback. We could not do it without you all, so thank you so much for your amazing work to each of our administrative professionals. There's a little height difference, but it's okay. It's all right. So as the chairman makes his way back, I think that concludes the comments that I have. Really appreciate all of you as we are continuing to work diligently on behalf of all of higher ed in the legislative session as well. So we'll keep you posted on our progress.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, is there any other business to come before our board?
I would.
I'd like to add an item.
Go ahead, Regent Levy.
I'd like to add an item to the board's agenda, and if you would tell us the process for doing such.
Okay, so to add an item, you all, the board can take up a matter not on the agenda if we make a motion to do so with a unanimous vote, all members present. First, briefly explain the nature of the matter, Regent Levy, that you wish to take up, and we can put a little bit of, specificity so the minutes will reflect that.
I would desire to authorize the board chair to draft a statement to support the board's continued commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the board's support of long-standing framework for tenure faculty employment.
Thank you so much. Do I have a motion?
I'll second that motion.
All right, motion, second. Great. Members, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any opposition to that? Great. So we will take the voice vote of all members present. We can go one by one.
Let me ask for clarity. So this is a motion to add an agenda item. Do we need a voice vote to add an agenda item?
I think we do.
Great.
Okay.
No opposition, so it's not necessary. Perfect. So we obviously have the unanimous vote. Regent Levy, well, you gave us your thoughts.
I'll do it again.
Okay. Just to make it clear.
Move to authorize the board chair to draft a statement to support the board's continued commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the board's support of the long-standing framework of tenure in faculty employment.
Perfect. So, there we go. So outside of that, do we have a second?
I will second that motion. Again.
You want to make a comment?
Yes.
Can we pass, do we have to pass it first and then he can make a comment, Uma?
No. It's
Go
on
ahead.
the floor. He uses the word to draft. I just wanted to be clear, to draft and have permission to issue.
There you go. Thank you. You accept that? Great. So, the motion passes. The motion passes. So, do I have to add that part again, too?
No, I think we had a motion second. I think just to be clear, we need to, you ask for a vote on that motion.
Okay, so, y'all see I'm still a year and a half in learning this process. Right? Actually, 9.5 years in, right? So, that being said, do you have a unanimous vote? Do we have a vote on all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All those opposed, nay? Unanimous? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for helping me through that process. So, any further discussion? Any questions? So, members, reminder, we do not have a meeting in May. We will meet again June 14th, our joint Bessie meeting. So is there a motion to adjourn? Motion second? Second? Seconded, great. Any discussion? Any questions? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.